voted for Donald Trump because he promised to protect American freedom, not just from the left, not just from the deep state, from a government that wants to know everything about you. So why is his Treasury Secretary building a system to tie your biometric data to your bank account? I'm going to show you three things today. First, exactly what Scott Bessent admitted on camera in his own words. Second, the law that Trump quietly signed that made all of this possible. And third, why the "it's about illegal immigration" argument just doesn't hold up for 5 minutes. So this one's important. I need you to stay with me. Last month at a Washington, D.C. economic summit, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked about a rumored executive order, one that would require banks to collect citizenship proof and biometric data from every customer in America. Not just new customers, every current customer too. And Bessent confirmed it. He said, and I quote, "It's in process, and I don't think it's unreasonable." Then he asked a question that should make every conservative's jaw hit the floor. Why don't we have information on who's in our banking system? The Treasury Secretary of the United States is asking why the federal government doesn't have more data on you. He confirmed it again just days later on CNBC. And let me be clear, I don't think Scott Bessent is a bad person, but I do think this is a profoundly un-American idea. And I think conservatives should say this loudly. Now, the argument you're going to hear is this is about stopping illegal immigrants from accessing our banking system. And I want to take that argument seriously because it sounds reasonable until you look at what already exists and until you understand what this executive order actually creates. Here is what the law already requires. Banks already legally are required to collect your social security number, your date of birth, your address, your tax ID. They already are required to verify your identity. That's federal law right now, and it has been this way for decades. So when Bessent says, why don't we know who's in our banking system? We do know. The system already exists, and it works. And here's something else that should bother every America First voter. Real ID. You know, that little star that's on your driver's license? The federal government spent 20 years convincing Americans to accept a standardized national ID card. It's now mandated at airports starting in May of 2025. In fact, there's a $45 fine at the airport if you don't have one. And 94% of Americans actually do. And the Trump administration just told us Real ID isn't good enough. Even a Republican financial services lobbyist told Semafor this plan is a complete nightmare and warned, and I want you to hear this, the admin might think this is a good idea until Joe MAGA in Alabama is asked to present his papers. That's a Republican in Washington saying that. But here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. This executive order doesn't just apply to illegal immigrants. It applies to every single American with a bank account. You, me, everyone watching this video. And as uncomfortable as that is, well, it gets worse because this wasn't a sudden decision. This was planned, it was built in, and it was signed into law by the president, and his supporters trusted him to protect our freedoms. So let me show you what happened. In July of last year, President Trump signed the Genius Act. It was sold as a crypto bill for stablecoins and for digital dollars. It was a win for American financial innovation, and MAGA cheered him on. But buried in that legislation, in the compliance language that nobody read on camera, was a mandate for digital identity verification for anyone using a stablecoin issuing institution. The bill explicitly defines those institutions as financial institutions. And it requires, and I quote this, maintenance of an effective customer identification program, including identification and verification of account holders. Folks, this is digital ID. It's baked into law, and it was signed by Trump. Trump's own AI and crypto czar, David Sachs, stood at that signing and told you that this creates a digital dollar that people all over the world can use. Look, I supported this president, and a lot of you did too. We supported him because he said he was different, because he said he was going to take on the surveillance state, the deep state, the people who want to monitor and control every aspect of your life. And now his Treasury Secretary is confirming that an executive order that ties your biometric data to your ability to hold a bank account. His administration already signed a law embedding digital ID into our financial system. And ICE, under this administration, is already biometrically databasing Americans through Palantir and building what their own officials described as a social credit score system. This is not America first. This is the same globalist surveillance infrastructure that conservatives have been warning about for 30 years. It's just a different flag on it. And Donald Trump, of all people, he should know better. Here's what America First actually means. It means the government works for the people, not the other way around. It means your financial freedom is not a privilege that Washington grants you for good behavior. And it means the Fourth Amendment, protection from unreasonable government intrusion, doesn't have an asterisk next to it that says, unless we call it immigration enforcement. The United Kingdom just tried to do exactly this. They called it the Brit card. They said it was all about illegal immigration. And within months, they were talking about using it to restrict who can work, who can travel, who can participate in public life. And if that sounds familiar, well, it should, because that is exactly what every government in history has done once it gets this kind of infrastructure in place. I'm not saying that Donald Trump wants a surveillance state. What I am saying is that he's building one, and I don't think enough people around him are telling him to stop. And someone has to say it. If you believe, like I do, that freedom and privacy are not negotiable, regardless of which party's in power, then share this video. Not because it's anti-Trump, but because it's pro-America. Real America First means holding everyone accountable, especially the people that we voted for. Comment below. Tell me if I'm wrong. Because the way I see it, the most patriotic thing you and I can be doing right now is asking some of these hard questions. And that's exactly what this channel is here for. Our very next story is going to be one that you do not want to miss. I break down actually the Secret Service dog that was used during the Washington Correspondents' Dinner. Well, he alerted multiple times to the assailant that tried to storm the ballroom. I'm going to break it all down for you. You have to see this. It's coming up next.